When somebody calls and they make a reservation for, let's say, between 5 and 7 p.m., ask them what their plans are and say, are you going to be in the neighborhood? Are you going to go see a show? What time is your show? Then I know how long these people are going to be in my restaurant because I can ask that question with a human voice. That to me is so valuable. I overheard a conversation with my reservationist. He had the phone on speakerphone and I'm sitting in the office and the person on the other line could not believe that she was actually speaking to a human being. She thought she was being catfished. And Terrell was like, no, I am not a robot. I am a human being. And I was like so proud of that moment. And she was like, that is really refreshing. I can't wait to experience your restaurant.
Hello, and welcome to Menu Talk with Pat and Brett. I'm your host for this week, Brett Thorne, Senior Food and Beverage Editor of Nation's Restaurant News. Pat Kobe, Senior Menu Editor of Restaurant Business, will be hosting next time. Our guest for this week is Joey Campanaro, the chef and owner of several restaurants in New York City's West Village, most notably Little Owl, which just celebrated its 20th anniversary in May. Joey grew up in Philadelphia, but he's been on the New York restaurant scene for many decades, although he has also traveled around working for the Patina Group, among others. And he also runs a sort of retreat in Italy. He's going to be hosting some stuff there probably this fall. Joey has this sort of matter-of-fact perspective that a lot of successful, long-standing restaurateurs have. He doesn't bemoan rising costs or changing cultures. He adapts to them. And he has some really great insights into how to provide analog customer service in a digital world while still remaining profitable. It's important information to know. A lot of what Campanaro does is understanding what your customers want, and that's changing, particularly as a growing number of his guests are on weight loss medications and are therefore eating less and ordering differently, and he's adapting. He doesn't approach these changes as problems, but simply as things that you have to know so you can adjust. He's a very smart and engaging guy, and I'm sure you'll enjoy listening to him. And now here is Joey Campanaro. How you doing, Joey Campanaro?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Mr. Brett Thorne.
Glad to hear it. You just celebrated the 20th anniversary of Little Owl. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you have, what, 3 other restaurants and a retreat in Italy and all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah. So the 3 other restaurants are corners in the neighborhood. There's a Market Table on Bedford and Carmine. The Clam, which is on Hudson and Leroy, which is popping this time of year, and the newest in the fleet is called Mary Lane. And I'm a partner in those restaurants with Chef Mike Price.
And you have a place in Italy too, right?
So in Italy, it's called Villa Montecastelli, and what we do is partner with the owner of that villa. It's on a hilltop in right in the center of Tuscany, and
wow,
yeah, it's a 1,000-year-old property. There's a castle on the property, and this home was actually part of one of the homes on the land that this castle sat on. And it's about 12 years ago, a guy named Jens took it over and turned it into a hotel, and he lets us host cooking retreats there. I like to do it in the fall. Is my favorite time of year to do it.
Well, probably great for weather and also food and harvest and all that stuff that you chefs are into.
Right, the harvest, and also we get to harvest some olives and harvest wine, harvest grapes.
Sounds fun. Well, you are like an expert on ancient Etruscan civilization, right?
Well, I wouldn't go that far to say that, but I did have a summer abroad while I was studying in Penn State, and I studied ancient architecture and civilization and culture. And yeah, I was intrigued by that and the mysteries of it. And whenever I see Etruscan exhibits at museums, I try and get there and try and be transported to a different time.
When you are a second generation Italian American, New Jersey Italian guy, you're probably
I
your
have to correct you
ancestors.
there.
Sorry?
You don't get more Philly than me.
I'm sorry. Yes, I knew you were Philly. I'm sorry about that. You
Close.
are not Jersey. You're Philly. Yes, I mean, Philly and South Jersey are culturally adjacent, we could say.
Well, yes, and we also had a summer home on the Jersey Shore in North Wildwood, New Jersey, where I had my first job as a dishwasher. So one of my first bosses was a chef.
And that was sort of what got you into cooking, right?
It really did. I really liked the way that he treated people, and I really liked the way that he was treated. And I was like, oh wow, I want people to bring me a pitcher of beer in the middle of service while I'm cooking. It looks like fun to a 10-year-old.
Yeah, so you wanted to be like a boss as well
Always
as
wanted
like
to be the boss. Yes.
that's cool. Um, but as a Philadelphia Italian, I imagine your family is from Southern Italy, as most Philly
Yeah,
Italians are.
that's correct. Yeah, both on both sides of the family. On my mother's side of the family, they're from Reggio de Calabria, and on my father's side of the family, they're on the southeastern coast. In Campobasso it's called Molise, Molisano.
Oh, yes, Molise, the newest region that they
Yeah,
broke off from Abruzzo or something like
right.
that, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So it's a mixed marriage, East Coast and West Coast Italian.
Yeah.
So how? I mean, your little owl is sort of is broader than just Italian food, right? It's Mediterranean ish. Is that
Yeah,
right?
I as a professional chef, I decided to draw my inspiration from the foods that I crave. And that's Italian food, it's French food, Spanish food, it's Mexican food, and it's Japanese food. Those are the flavors that I chase, and I have a lot of comfort, and I feel familiar to the ingredients, and also they fit into my business model of featuring seasonal produce and so that I can have signature dishes on the menu that don't need to change, like the meatballs and the pork chop, because those ingredients are available year round. But other dishes that get to that change when the seasons are in focus, like when I want to feature the tomatoes and when I want to use soft shell crabs and fava beans and such, I get to have seasonal staples. So, for instance, I can have halibut all year round, but this time of year it's served with a very light salad with roasted corn mixed with, shucked peas. And in the winter months, I'll serve it with chive mashed potatoes and a lemon creme fraiche sauce that checks off a seasonal box for me. And those are dishes that I've featured on menus that were before the Little Owl was even conceived.
Because you were at the Harrison before then, right?
Right. So I was with Jimmy Bradley and Dan Abrams, and we opened up two restaurants together. One was more successful than the other, and necessity being the mother of invention, I was in a position to take over the space at Bedford and Grove, and that's when the Little Owl was born.
So you had restaurant working experience, obviously. You didn't get any culinary training, did you? Was that all on the job?
So yeah, I spent some time in the Philadelphia Restaurant School. Yeah, it was a program that I got to travel to France with, but I never finished the program. I ended up going to the School of Hard Knocks and working for Chef Neil Murphy at Symphony Cafe in the early '90s.
I think working in restaurants is probably the way to go. What do you think?
I think I'm not going to knock the benefits of any education. Um, People learn different ways. Suffering dyslexia is a clear way for like I learn differently from other people. And so the hands-on experience was great for me. Um, but more importantly, what it did was it built confidence and in assurance from someone that is obviously superior, right? So if somebody has earned that title of executive chef and they look at you after a hard day and say, you flipped your switch, that's a confidence that you earn where, you're not getting yelled at all day and rather you have this chef saying, "Hey, this plate looks nice," or "Oh, that's delicious." That reassurance is something that drove me forever. Like we look for that approval. Um, it makes us want to continue on. We're addicted to that. It's like
Right.
we want to
For sure.
hear that's delicious. Wow, you did that. For a young cook, that means the world. It's a means more than the minimum minimum paycheck that you get for doing it.
I mean, there are different cultures in different kitchens, right? Were you raised in or did you come up in a nurturing kitchen or a yelling kitchen, or was it a combination of yelling while also nurturing, which like that tough love thing that I think is pretty traditional in
Yeah, there was
restaurants?
for the tough love. It started for me when I needed it the most, I would say. And it was actually an introduction from my older brother, who he could have helped me find a job in any restaurant in New York, but he just so happened to pick Symphony Cafe, which was a notoriously competitive place to earn a position. It wasn't easy to get that job. Um, and it was a different era where, you know, th- there was definitely a generational shift when it came to um, personal feelings versus like what's legal. And boundaries got pushed a lot in those days. And so I had a resilience to it. I still have sometimes some nightmares when I wake up and it's like, oh, I think did I forget something? Everyone has the same type of nightmares.
Of course, yes.
But some of my friends can't finish their dream unless there's no more tickets on board. You got to get that last ticket out and they can finish their dream.
You've been a boss for 20 years now. Um, and did your early upbringing growing up in restaurants color the way that you manage what you're doing?
I had lots of opportunity to be in charge of a team. My first real opportunity to be the boss was right around when Bryant Park Grill opened. And I was in my early 20s and in charge of a team of like 40 people that were twice my age, and most of them didn't speak English. So that was a really big learning experience to the point where I probably should have been fired. But Jonathan Waxman and Jimmy Bradley were very nurturing with me, but also taught me lots of key points to leadership. And one of them was it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So that gave me some confidence to test some waters. But that also led me to get kicked out of New York City, and he sent me down to Washington D.C. And then, you know, the the briar patch for me was Los Angeles when I had to go out to Los Angeles and work on the back lot of Universal Studios to open the executive dining room there, and
Oh,
also
wow.
be a part of the opening in New York, and Las Vegas. So 1996 was a great year for me. Um, and in 2001, I was brought back to New York to open the Harrison with Jimmy. And that was Jimmy and I had a great run. We worked together for 5 years. And then in 2006, I opened the Little L.
Wow. So you'd been running kitchens for a while before you were running your own kitchen.
Yeah, it started in the 90s. And while I was out in LA, I was able to work with Joachim Splichal and the late great Reiner Schwartz, and was a part of Patina Catering, where we opened the Getty Museum. Many years of catering the Emmys, and some sous chef responsibilities for it's a restaurant called Cafe Pinot in downtown LA, which is a very busy joint. And we had this beautiful wall of fire for a rotisserie oven, and it used to get hot in front of that thing. But I loved my time in Los Angeles. And in 2001, and that point in my career, it was definitely, there was a calling that was happening. No one knew what was going to happen in September 2001, but it was also, the greatest team ever put together to be a part of that opening. It was a very meaningful time. Whereas I've always said, I was bit by the camaraderie bug in how kitchens are run and how restaurants run. And in that situation, to be the executive chef of that restaurant and work with that team during that time was very defining. Um, it's almost like that humbling experience of being in the middle of the ocean, and it makes you really appreciate the power of your own vulnerability. But knowing that you're a part of a team, not just a leader, um, was the time in my life that kind of gave me the confidence to know that I'm going to be okay when I go and open up my own business.
Yeah, I bet. Well, and for our non-New York audience, the Harrison was pretty close to the World Trade Center. So
Yeah, it was just
in
5 blocks.
Tribeca.
Yeah, it was 5 blocks from there.
Wow, that was a hell of a time. I
Yeah,
was here
yeah.
to understate it. And so what got you banished from New York? What did you do at Bryant Park Row?
I was intense. I was like really crazy, and I threw something in the kitchen. Didn't hit anybody, but that that was in that team. It was, that's not how we're going to do it here. And so instead of being let go, they let me know that that was not accepted. That wasn't accepted behavior. And they sent me down to Washington, D.C. to work at B. Smith's in Union Station. And
That must have been
I
fun.
had to travel across the country with my best friend and make stops and, cater a wedding in Iowa and open up New York and Las Vegas and, eventually make it to the promised land and be a part of the transformation of Universal Studios when Edgar Bronfman Jr. bought it. And then eventually took over Polygram Records, and it became the largest media company in the world. It was a big deal.
Wow. So
That was my
you th-
banishment from New York.
you threw a thing, and your boss has said, "Go out and learn something. We're gonna send you out into the world," and eventually you came back.
And I came back. Yeah, it was like a boomerang.
Yeah, yeah, long circuitous boomerang that eventually landed you, uh, what, a mile north of the Harrison at the Little Owl? Like, it's pretty relatively close,
Yeah, I've
something
always
like
liked
that.
to be downtown.
Well, now your restaurants are West Village institutions, and how the neighborhood must have changed a lot. I mean, it was already very well gentrified when you opened there, but what's it like now?
Yeah, part of my shtick when I was down there was like I didn't want to see graffiti. And there were like a few buildings that had graffiti on it, and you could see it from inside the restaurant. And so I just took care of it. I didn't tell anybody what I was doing. One was on somebody's house across the street, and they didn't even notice that until it was gone. And they were like having dinner at the restaurant, and they were like telling a story about there used to be graffiti here, and we don't know what happened. And their server told them that what that guy did it. He cleaned it off for you. And so they ultimately became very good customers and friends. Um, and so Little Al has always been able to adapt and pivot and really become a part of the fabric of the neighborhood. And that was an idea of in the entire business case was to like the windows were kind of blocked off and the view was blocked off, and so it opened up all the windows and it's a restaurant where you can actually see the sky from any given seat, and to
Wow.
feel inside and outside is just to be protected inside, but also see and feel New York City, especially Greenwich Village, is part of the product. And so I really wanted to be able to like stay here, right? And create something that was ambiguous and timeless, but also had an opportunity to underpromise and overdeliver. And so to have fresh pasta made by somebody that knows how to make fresh pasta in a restaurant that doesn't allude to saying that we're experts in pasta making is an opportunity to really like allow somebody to order it to be surprised pleasantly and say, oh, wow, this is actually delicious. This is one of the best things I've ever had. And, that happened with the meatballs. It was like, it's a very humble dish. It's the perfect food and it's a perfectly shaped thing. It's shaped like a planet. It reached the cover of Bon Appetit magazine in the first year that we were open there. And so the changes are inevitable. That's New York City. You need to be able to accept change and grow with it. And just like with advances in technology, if you're not going to use it and understand it and learn it and be a part of it, then you're going to get left behind. And so there are always trends in restaurants, right? And there are ways to stay relevant by following trends and giving people what they think they want and in that moment and in that time. But then there's also this timelessness that if you edit yourself but stay true to your intention, to true hospitality, you can have an opportunity to really make an impact in somebody's experience. And so if they can remember that and they're going to talk about it. Your hours of operation, I call them hours of opportunity. It's not hours of operation. One of my signature moves is to never have the chairs be up on the tables, right? Because even when you're closed, I'd rather have this space look inviting, right? I never looked inside a restaurant with chairs up and said, "Oh, I want to sit in that room," ever, right?
Right.
But if you have a nice, clean dining room that's empty, I mean, I never want to see an empty dining room anyway. But if it's going to be empty, it might as well be orderly and clean and inviting.
So although you have opening hours, you're marketing 24/7 by having an attractive restaurant that if people walk by at 3 a.m, which they do in that neighborhood, they're
Right,
like,
you
oh, that's a
gotta
cool
do
place.
what you gotta do. You have to do what you gotta do on Bedford Street. I mean, the street's just getting more and more and more. To me, to be like an anchor on the block, you know, I welcome the business to the block.
If you go to a neighborhood where there are a lot of restaurants, it seems like all of them benefit because people are like, let's go out to eat. And they walk along and they find a place.
Yeah, and restaurants that help each other, that's where I like to kind of to shine, is to be the welcoming center to Bedford Street and support these businesses. It's not always reciprocated, but what are you going to do? You can't. I have to set your own goals in life, I guess.
You can control how you act. You cannot control how other people are going to act. Right?
Right. I like to operate from positivity.
Yeah. Where did the name Little Owl come from?
So if you remember, on the northeast corner of Bedford and Grove, there's one of the oldest wooden buildings left in the village. And the story is that the Mattel family built that house, and Ken and Barbie grew up there. Anyway, on the top corner of it, like if you build a wooden house, you put an owl on there to keep woodpeckers away, because the pigeons don't care. They never did. But you don't want woodpeckers chopping down your house.
Right.
So woodpeckers are afraid of owls. And so there's an owl up there, right? And so we could see it from the restaurant. And so I looked up and I said, oh, look at that little owl up there. So it's an homage to the neighborhood and to, what owls represent.
Well, it gives you the freedom to go in whatever culinary direction you want because you're not promising anything. You're like, it's Little Owl.
It
You're
would,
going to eat what I cook.
yeah, I'm happy it stayed ambiguous and didn't call it the Asian owl or the Italian owl or the Mexican owl or the Spanish owl.
Instead, it's the Little Owl.
But it is a little restaurant, and that's why we called it the Little Owl.
Yeah, it seats what, 20 some odd people? It's a little restaurant.
Yeah, with the bar and maximum capacity, it's 33 fits where we can serve people. And then in the last year and a half, we expanded in the same building just down on Bedford Street. We took over the space that was formerly Mustache, and in that space, we put the chef's room. And so it's our twin sister. So I've always loved Little Owl so much that I wanted another one. So I put another one right next door. And that space is popping for lunch. I put a record player in there, so we spin vinyl there. And I call it the chef's room because I do chef generated events. So this summer, every Tuesday in July and August, I'm going to do my seafood boil, where I'll get a couple of bushels of crabs, and I cook all the seafood separately. But what it does is it creates this intense broth, where when you cook everything in this broth and in this bouillon, it's summer to me, right? And we cook the vegetables in there, corn and potatoes, and it's all you can eat. And so the summer seafood boil at the chef's room is going to be on, and I'd like to see you there, Mr. Thorne.
Every Tuesday
Every
in
Tuesday, we'll
July and
see you
August.
there.
I mean, I probably won't come every Tuesday, but yes, I'd love to swing by. That sounds awesome. Uh, um, and so a lot of restaurants are closing these days, and a lot of restaurants are opening. I finding that in my neighborhood, and I think every neighborhood. And people talk about how hard it is to run restaurants now. Is it harder now than it was when you started?
Um, it was so long ago when I started. It's hard to
Right.
say. Um,
True. You're a different person than when you opened, so the perspective is
the
different.
opening a restaurant is hard, was hard, and will always be hard. It's not anything that will ever get easier, because things will change, and generations change, and ethics change. Your clientele changes, right? Um, so to have consistency in your product is what needs to be accepted, right? And to maintain consistency, it's really difficult, right? So we used to have schedules that were handwritten in pencil, so that things changed, you could just erase it and change it, and it was easy, and it lived on the wall right next to the clock where you clock in and out, and that's how you get your money. So that doesn't happen anymore, right? It's all switched to technology. So
Right.
I find that if the technology would keep certain benefits from those antique systems, then they could learn from people like me who think that that system still is the best. All right. And so, for instance, breaks, like breaks were never a thing when I started in this business. Um, but in order to be compliant, I have to make sure that my staff takes breaks. And so the best way to manage that is to write it what time their break is on their schedule. And so next week, next Thursday, I know, and they know when it's expected for them to take their break. So now there's this software that you can't make it visible for someone else to know when somebody else's break is. And I'm like, how can we not do this? Like, we have to
That's crazy.
we have to rig the system in order to make it work. And, I was able to do that with Open Table for a long, long time, especially at Little Owl, with, extending turn times at prime time, and then shortening them on the shoulders, while, investing heavily in the human experience on the actual telephone. When somebody calls and they make a reservation for, let's say, between 5 and 7 p.m., ask them what their plans are, and say, are you going to be in the neighborhood? Are you going to go see a show? What time is your show? Then I know how long these people are going to be in my restaurant, because I can ask that question with a human voice. That that to me is so valuable. Um, I overheard a conversation with my reservationist. He had the phone on speakerphone, and I'm sitting in the office, and the person on the other line was this English woman with an adorable accent, and she could not believe that she was actually speaking to a human being. She thought she was being catfished. Terrell was like, "No, I am not a robot. I am a human being." And I was like so proud of that moment. And she was like, "That is really refreshing. I can't wait to experience your restaurant."
So you haven't mentioned the cost of labor or commodities or, any of the stuff that everybody is bitching about these days. Things are always tough, it sounds like.
Things are tough. Yeah. I mean, when I first moved to New York, my rent in my home was $925, and that was ridiculous. And right now it's like 7,000. And I'm just like, and that's ridiculous. Yeah, it's
Right.
ridiculous. Welcome to the city. I strive to have a place where I can live and grow a retirement account, you know, and that's why I tell my employees, I was like, you're going to work here for a while. You should consider start an IRA. Do you have an IRA? No, you should start one now. And it's a reality of you get lost when you come into the city um, I never used to like taking the subway. And so I was, I don't remember what minimum wage was in the 90s. It was like 7.25 an hour or something like
I think it was less, but yes, it was not
685,
much.
something like that. And, so when you take a taxi cab to work, right? So you're spending, if it was $10 to and from, it's $20. That's 3 hours of work. Like, geez, I worked 3 hours
Right.
just to get here. These economics aren't adding up.
No.
So, yeah, it's a hard place to live. You have to want to live here.
But it's also a hard place to run restaurants. I mean, every place is, but I was thinking more of like the cost of like beef prices are insane. Workman's comp insurance, I understand, is insane. Like there are all these costs of doing business that are going up.
Insurance did a double on us. It went from $10 to $20 overnight. The, as far as like a cost center goes, I'm really proud of my teams and how we're able to look at our costs weekly and really we'll make midweek decisions. We use our creativity and our prowess to give people what they want. That doesn't cost a lot of money, but still can maintain a place and a margin on the menu. And so you used to hear things like the industry standard for food costs for, an executive chef to be proud of would be about 30%. That would mean your business is closing these days. If you don't accept that industry standard is a lot less than what it used to be, then you're not doing any service to the business itself, nor to your guests. Um, if you want to create that loyalty, you got to give people what they crave. And oftentimes it doesn't need to cost a lot of money, like zucchini flowers, right? I want to make things with zucchini flowers. So, and they're beautiful, and there's you need about 18,000 of them to make something substantial.
Right.
So we get a little creative, like channel my grandmother, and what would she do with zucchini flowers, because she survived the Depression. You're talking about a woman that used to rinse off the ice cubes and put them back in the freezer. So,
Yes. Sounds
she would
familiar.
make fritters, she would make a dough with ricotta cheese and flour and eggs and put some seltzer water in there and chop up the flowers and fry some garlic and anchovy and mix them all and put them in there and make little pancakes out of the zucchini flowers. And then serve that with beautiful Jersey tomatoes that she would chop up and mix it with olive oil and salt, a little basil. And there's really nothing better than that. And to have something that's like hot, and you get hot and cold and texture. I mean, and it doesn't cost that much to make, but you could still charge enough so that it's something it's temporary, right? You're going to have this now. And so to, to say, oh, I'm going to do this in August, it's too late. Right? You have to
Right.
do it now. So you have to be ready for now and really take advantage of the season so you can really drive your food costs down, but you'll have a greater margin, but you're not going to outprice yourself.
Right.
So your
So
menu prices have to be your staple, right? So unfortunately, entrees right now are low 40s, high 30s, where, it used to be a 10 digits down, but now I went 10 digits up. And so, yeah, to be consistent and competitive, it's really very important. One thing that I do want to touch on, Brett, is that people are definitely eating differently. As chefs, we have to get feedback from our front of house, and the most important person is the person that's actually clearing the plate and bringing it back to the kitchen. and scraping whatever's left on the plate and the garbage. And then, so we can get in a sense of what people aren't eating and say, okay, well, let's change this dish. If they're not eating it, like, they're ordering it
Right.
because of a
Save the money.
buzzword, or let's save the money. Let's not put it on the plate. Let's find it a different way. And that could be for lots of reasons, right? It could be the plate's overworked and that thing that you put on there wasn't necessary. But it's also people are taking medicine to not eat as much, right? So with all these medicines that are, they're fighting diabetes
Hmm.
and cholesterol and blood pressure, is all very important. These people that are in that age that are focusing on that for health reasons are also the ones that fill your restaurant.
Right.
So those are the ones that are ordering the nice wines. Those are the guests that are, having the 3-course meal, that are now maybe having a 2-course meal and they're sharing, right? There's lots of sharing going on. And something that Little Al was pretty much well known for, it started at the Harrison and then continued as necessity at Little Al because of the size, was if two people wanted to share what they were eating, instead of bringing share plates and dropping 2 plates and this clunky awkwardness of passing plates around, we would just put it on 2 plates. So if you wanted a pork chop and a halibut split, you can have, we have plates where we can put half the pork chop on one side and half the halibut and put that on 2 plates. And people go crazy for that. And they're like, you know, that's information that's extrapolated tableside. In a busy restaurant that's buzzing, and you have this server who is like a great dancer or a great singer who's here taking care of you for this little bit of time that you guys are going to be together, and they can extrapolate that that's what you want, and then they bring it to you. That's a wow factor. That's going to bring somebody back to your restaurant. And I
Absolutely.
really believe that that's what happened at Little Al.
People feel looked after. They feel like somebody paid attention to their needs and provided it for them. Just like speaking to them as a human, also understanding what their plans are so that you're not like they're looking at their watch because they need to get out of there. You already know that they have a show at 7:30. So you look after that.
Yeah,
It's called
absolutely.
paying attention to your customers.
Yeah, and that's information that's not always transferred um, efficiently by using the software. With how we communicate via text, with getting a thumbs up, is that closure. And so oftentimes you're not going to get that thumbs up if you leave a note in your system. Is this going to work? Is they going to get it? Um, so yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, well, it's tricky, but you've still managed to do it, and you're opening restaurants, and it seems like you do what good restaurateurs do, which is pay attention every day to what's happening.
Thanks for noticing that, Brett.
Good job. You got any other parting words that you'd like to share?
Well, I'd love to see you this summer, and thank you for watching this. We'll see you at the Little Owl.